Yes, and we're live. Ladies and gentlemen who are watching us from wherever you are, we know the weather could be warm, it could be cold. If it's warm, open the windows, enjoy the sunlight. If it's cold, get a mug of coffee and have a candid discussion with us. Today, of course, we are talking another layer of marriage. Yesterday, we talked extensively about first the history of marriage, gender-based violence as it prevails in marriage. And today, based on the conversations we've been having, we want to have a layered discussion on what really is marriage and what are the experiences from our panelists that inform how they view marriage. And ultimately, we want to get an understanding of marriage. Does it work? How do we go about it as young people in this generation? Probably looking forward to having partners who we will share our lives with, or whatever our views are. So I will start off with introducing Rachel from PTN.
Greetings everybody, how are you doing? My name is Rachel Stephanie Echini. I work at Peace Tree Network as the program assistant. Well, Peace Tree Network has been in existence since the year 2000, and it's been working on various dockets, which is human rights, peace building, gender development, and of course, what is bringing us in today, which is the advocacy project. Well, another advocacy project is the Inside Out, which and the Men Hear Our Voices, which encompasses the Boyz Chamber, that our very able moderator Robin has been handling since three. Yeah, you've been doing a good job, an amazing job. So this is our second session for the Boyz Chamber series, and we'll be covering marriage and GBV. And I am excited. I'm excited to see Miss Jennifer Mudonga on the panel. I'm excited to see Otivo Stingothao. I'm excited to see Jicho Pebu Pot Mwenyewe. So I hope you will enjoy this segment. And yeah, that's all I have for now. All love from Peace Tree Network. And handing it over back to you, Robin.
Thank you so much, Rachel. These kinds of discussions are very important in as far as giving information to people, especially in our generation, is concerned. I want to jump straight into the round of introductions and start us off with having an introduction from Jennifer. Jennifer Muthoga, please tell us about yourself, what you do. Let the audience get to know you. Jennifer. Jennifer, unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, you're still on mute. Okay, now you're fine.
Good. Okay. Yes, as I was saying, I'm a counselor, yes. And my area of specialization is family and marriage therapy. Okay. And I've been working basically with families that have issues with marriage, issues with family. And yes, what I also didn't say is that I'm an ordained minister of the gospel. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I want now to go to Lisa Odur. Lisa Odur, please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do so that the audience can get to know you. Lisa.
Sure, thank you, Robin. So my name is actually Lisa Odur Noah, but many people think that it's just Lisa Odur. And I'm a musician, a singer-songwriter, and producer. I am also a teacher. I've been a vocal teacher for a while, even before I was a performer. And yeah, that's what I do. And then an advocate for good mental health, healthy mental health, and healthy musicians.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa. I want to go to Jicho Pevu. Jicho Pevu, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do. Jicho, you're on mute.
Okay, sana nasikika.
Yes, yes.
In a nutshell, I'm an artist. I do spoken word. I also do rap partly, and I also do voiceover. And I'm a father. That's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jicho Pevu. I want now to bring Otivo. Otivo, please tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, hi guys. Good morning. Basically, Otivo is a singer, songwriter, instrumentalist, and a staunch Christian. And I am looking forward to hearing from the panelists and the professionals about these issues because I think it's high time even we in the music industry, in the arts scene, get to know about healthy marriages and healthy lifestyles, just as Lisa has put it, healthy mental states. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Otivo. Today's discussion, as you can already see, is bringing together a very varied panel, a group of panelists. And this is mostly because marriage is not something you can discuss in ways that this is the exact way it's supposed to be done, because from yesterday's conversation we found out that people have different experiences individually, and that these experiences inform how their outlook on marriage is, and even how they carry themselves out when it comes to marriage. Our online conversations have exposed us to a lot of information where the general view of marriage is very tepid, and so we want to just have a very open discussion based on all of this. I want to jump straight into inviting Lisa Oduor Noah. Lisa Oduor Noah. I got the name right this time. Please.
Yes, you did.
So, Lisa, please tell us about your experience growing up as a child and how that has impacted your view of marriage and basically life in as far as partnerships and unions are concerned. Lisa.
Wow. This is a very heavy topic, in a world where we are all sharing very different upbringing experiences. So for me, I was a child born in the 90s. I am the last born of 7. So I'm number 7, which is thankfully a very lucky number, I guess, my favorite number. And my parents, considering what year I was born, like there were a ton of other people before me. So I was kind of the one who was born late in the game. But you know how lastborns are treated, like the handbag. You go where your parents are. So that was a lot of my life. And growing up was pretty cool. Although it felt like I was growing up with people who are already grown-ups. So I guess I know there's some psychologists who say that it's like your rate of growing up, I guess if that's a thing, your rate of maturity seems to happen a bit faster because I'm around people who are like way older than me, right? High school was okay, but I was kind of bullied. But then there was a lot of support as well from my church, from my my firstborn sister. So certain things, there was a lot of, I guess, safety. I wouldn't say safety nets, but safe covering, even when things like that happened, as a teenager. And then my mother used to work with the UN organization, and my father is an engineer. So I grew up watching my parents work and work hard for everything that they earned. Unfortunately, due to where my mother worked at some point, she suffered a lot of PTSD, and that led to alcoholism. And it was a struggle for me being the last born, and I guess because you watch your parents are your heroes, and they were like not just my heroes but my best friends. So I guess that was what was, I guess, the hardest impact on me growing up, and from that experience of growing up. However, as I've mentioned before, for me, I guess I found my solace and I guess the way I could recover or cope through music, whether singing in churches or church choirs and writing my own music. That's how I found recovery. But I was also taught such important lessons, about showing support for each other in the family, seeing how a family can come together, seeing how people can stick together even in the toughest of situations in marriage and still love one another. I remember a counselor telling us, when you have an addict in the family, the whole family is sick. As addictive relationships where you have a person who is an addict or I guess suffering from substance abuse, you find it develops a lot of codependent relationships and certain fear of abandonment and fear of commitment, so, and like I've said this before, even in an engaged talk where you learn how to just get through things instead of actually living your life, but thankfully for me, music allowed me to do that. Music and also finding friends who were, how do I say, my sister calls them your stretcher bearers. So people who are your number one, the house you'll go and stay to, the people who you call for an emergency, the people both in family and even outside. So I developed a very strong support system. And then I went away to university, and it opened up a whole other door because now I was getting to know myself outside of the environment I'd grown up in. And it was such an amazing experience because now I was finding out who I was as a musician, but finding out who I was as a person and standing on the beliefs that had governed my life. Yes, I'm a Christian as well. And for me, it was reinforced, I guess, going through all of this, just how God uses people to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So for me, I saw that and evidenced that both going to school and growing up. And yeah, it just reinforced that, yeah, when you marry someone or pick someone, even from what I saw with my parents when my mother was going through that, when you pick someone, you can never plan for what will happen to them or how they'll change or how life will impact them. But marriage is a choice and you have to keep choosing the person. So for me, that is one of the biggest things that I took away, at least in a nutshell. So that's what my growing up experience has been like, in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much, Lisa, for that captivating and that journey, explaining to us how it felt growing up. I want to invite Jennifer Mutoga. Jennifer, what have you picked up from this, from Lisa's talk, and how do you view it how do you obtain how do we unpack everything she has said? Jennifer.
What I have picked is number one, Lisa, born as the last born in a family of 7. And yes, the others were a bit grown, so it's like she had to grow up rather quickly, to fit into the big shoes. And as it were, as a last born, there's that feeling of now when everyone else, you have to catch up with the whole world, as it were. I also picked the issue of a lot of family support, especially from her sister. She talks of a bit of bullying in school, but her sisters would come in on board. She spoke of a lot of issues to do with her family, her mom going through PTSD, which is a condition like when you have been exposed to trauma for a long time, either as an individual or you have experienced other people going through a traumatic experience. So you
Yes.
become a secondary, yeah. And from what I picked from Lisa, it's because of her work. Yeah,
Yeah, where
maybe watch
she
the
lived in a war-torn country.
Ah, so what normally happens is that all those experiences, especially if during that time there is no a lot of debriefing, so as to help you deal with those issues, it's very
Exactly.
easy for yeah for the caregiver to find themselves caught up, and you end up developing PTSD. And what
Exactly.
happens is that it causes, it's like they're living in a nightmare every single day.
Mm,
At night they cannot sleep, they are seeing things, hearing things, even sometimes even on the body experiencing like
exactly.
pain a lot, and it's like they're in a world of their own, and they are
Mm,
experiencing this thing every waking moment, even their sleep is interrupted. So what that does in a family setup, a family stresses because number one, this person is not available emotionally,
mm-hmm.
maybe even
Emotionally
physically,
unavailable. Mm-hmm.
completely unavailable. So the family members now start feeling as though they are maybe too much is demanded from them because this person is not okay. They are sick, as it
Exactly.
were.
Exactly.
So, and I'm imagining there's a lot that came into play. Like some of you had to step up and be mother,
Of course,
or
because
maybe.
naturally, you find that this is even before the wave of influence on mental health and conversations were being had. So back then, it was like more taboo to be. You're going to see a therapist. What for? What's wrong? What can't you fix? You know. And I know a lot of workplaces also didn't have that as a precursor or as a necessity for people who work in areas like that, unless it was like on the extreme end. So, like you said, on the flip side now, because it's a primary caregiver, they're not only nursing the responsibility of their job, but then they're nursing the responsibility of their family, but not able to function in the entire capacity, you know. So, yes, myself, I'm a lastborn, but I grew up like a firstborn because of all the things I had to do.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
what that does again in the family as a general, the relationships become strained. The person becomes very
absolutely.
irritable, and any small thing, it's like you have to walk on tiptoes around them, fearing that you'll,
Mm-hmm.
break something, and it
Mm-hmm.
becomes tiring. You start even your self-esteem is affected as a person, and all of you are
Absolutely.
wondering like, what do I do? What don't I do?
Mm-hmm.
So, as a family, when there are issues that come in as a family, you discover that if a family doesn't pull together, then the
Mm,
family will disintegrate. And that's the one beautiful
exactly.
stuff from this family, that you chose to come together and hold together.
Mm.
I think I got that. Yeah. So
Yes,
the
yes.
the other thing is the again learning to be the individual, which I picked also.
Mm.
Lisa spoke about, and she found a place for herself in music and a few other things when, especially when she was in college. And it's very important, especially when there's a lot of all these things happening in the family. They can like swallow you in, like it becomes
Yeah,
like you can never give enough. That's the way it always feels. And
exactly.
sometimes some people
Exactly.
feel, yeah, like, should I go out and leave my mommy? Will it
Mm.
be seen as if I've abandoned her? So you feel
Abandon them.
guilty when you're not
Exactly.
there. Yeah. And when you are feeling
Mm.
guilty about
Mm.
you have abandoned, you have done things that maybe I should be home more. But again, I have a life,
Mm.
you know,
Exactly.
and I also
Yeah.
matter somewhere. So that
Mm.
delicate balance between me, the individual, and my individual needs, and now
Mm.
the family needs, especially now of a family member, it becomes
Mm.
a tricky balance. If you don't get
Mm.
it right, then it affects your self-esteem. It affects you. You end up like, I've seen people who have totally not even, like, they abandoned the life to take care of a loved one, didn't even start
Yeah.
up a family they were meant to, and then eventually when that loved one is no more, then they start feeling like
They don't know who they are
angry
anymore. Yeah.
and angry that it's like this person took me away with them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know that
resentment as
how
well.
that has been like for you, Lisa. Yeah.
For me, it's a bit. I think I realized that I was being, especially like going into college and having outlets, whether it was singing in church with my friends and choir directing, or even mentoring other people. I realized through the outlets and then on my way to college that I'm being given space and room to define myself outside of the circumstance I was going through. And I think that's so important because the thing about any kind of trauma is it tries to, it's like giving yourself a name. It tries to, you are identified by your trauma. Do you know what I mean? Rather than by the
Yeah.
person that you're choosing to be or you're choosing to, who you see yourself as. And so at that point, for me, I started to realize, wait, if I'd like to think of it this way. If, let's say, I think of my character and the person that I am as unique as the thumbprint that I have, there's no one like me. There's no one who makes the music that I do. There's no one who can do what I was created to do in this earth, right? And if that's the case, then I also need to think about my life that way. Even if I might have someone who suffers from this and I have to care for certain things, I also need to figure out who I am and what I want in my life and what my dreams look like. Because the tendency to be overshadowed and defined by the trauma or by any traumatic experience is that we now, it's like now, oh, because of this I can't do this, or if I leave her I'll be, then I have guilt that's not my responsibility, you know. So for me, realizing all of that made me see, okay, yeah, I know that this is what has happened, but this is not and cannot define me. It is a part of the story that's being written concerning my life, but it is not the end of the story. It doesn't end with saying that Lisa's mom had this and this and this, or Lisa is the child of an addict. No, it ends with Lisa did such and such in her overall life. So I think that's the problem with trauma. It tends to try to overshadow the other things that can happen and that you can dream of happening, you know. So that's what I'd say for me, at least.
No. I love that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say
Thank you. Yes, yes,
that
yes,
the
Jennifer.
one point of identifying yourself. I am in the family, but I'm not the family. The individuating yourself is very key because it really does help you discover like who you are and you forge your life ahead even as you continue like knowing how much will I give of myself so that I still remain sane. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jennifer. When I listened to Lisa talk, I remembered something that we picked up yesterday in yesterday's discussion, and I want to probe it a bit further with you, Jennifer, on the aspect of, she said, when you marry and you pick someone, there's a lot of uncertainty tied to it because you're never really in control of what the future holds. And also, following the discussions we've been having online leading to this discussion today, we've been having people really looking at marriage from an aspect of this is a trap and we need to get in imagining how we will get out. So for example, people are really interested in topics such as polygamy. People are asking questions like, is monogamy a myth? People are asking, people have very varied, the people in our generation have very varied temperaments when it comes to the discussion on marriage. And the question I'd like to ask you is uncertainty part of the bargain? Like, is there a marriage where you go in and then you are sure? Is there a certain degree of certainty that you're supposed to have? And if so, how much? Because from where we are standing, it looks like there's a lot of uncertainty. Jennifer.
Wow. interesting perspective. I must say that nobody knows more than just today. In fact, it always feels like driving in the dark. There's only enough light to see the next step. After that, you don't know. So when we are going into marriage, rather than it being out of fear, I'm thinking of it in terms of being an adventure. Yes, I don't know what is out there, but I have what it takes to face it, and I'm not facing it alone. Of course, I have my partner, and together we are going to unravel what life brings to us. So I think right from the onset is maybe the perspective we put onto it. Because I'm sensing because this generation has had to face watching their parents divorce, sickness or death happening, and it affected the marriage. So the fear is that I'm going into this thing that it turned anyhow. I have no surety. Yes, of course, nobody knows what will happen tomorrow, but there's nothing you can tell yourself as you go in. I'm going to work on this thing. If something good is going to happen, yeah, I'm not, it's not like I'm going in I'm waiting, something is hidden. The minute it bursts on me, I'm out of here. That's the fear I'm feeling that most of the people in this generation have. And yes, they are justified somehow because what they have seen has not made things anyway. So maybe I don't know that done justice to that because I'm feeling that the understanding of what marriage is. I'm going in as a human being, not a superhuman being. You're coming in as a human being, and all human beings are fallible. We can always find ourselves making mistakes. So, with a lot of room for letting the other person become who they are and knowing how you will live with those parameters. I'm seeing it more from that perspective because we don't have anyone who can say that I got in. We all have the hope and they lived, that storybook ending, and they lived happily ever after. There's someone who told me they never live happily thereafter. Maybe for a day or two, a month, a year, but that one, hiyo iko tu kwa storybook. And the truth is that what we imagine life is, like we've watched a lot of movies, a lot of soap operas where they are telling us, all those nice, good people who are happy all the time. That's not reality. Reality is some days you're happy, some days you're sad. Some days you're angry with each other, and some days you make up. That's life. I don't know whether you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jennifer. There's I'd like, in the panel today we are fortunate to have somebody who is dating, anticipating marriage. We also have somebody who is actually in a family with a child and they are living happily with the wife. Yeah, and they are all young couples. And so I'd like to bring them into the discussion to weigh in a bit. Of course, this is the first half of the discussion. In the next half, my co-moderator, who is Michelle will be joining us during that time. She will also probe further on the discussion as we continue. But then I want to bring in Jicho. Jicho Pevu, you are a poet, you're an artist. I am a personal fan of all your work.
Yes.
Please tell us your experience growing up, first growing up as a child, and what you viewed a family as at that time and marriage, and now being a person who is a father and in a civil union with your wife right now. How do you weigh in, and what can you tell the people who are watching? Jicho.
First of all, I want to be thankful for this platform. Thank you, Robin, Spontaneous, and any other person involved. Alafu, to our therapist, Jennifer, thank you so much for that information. It's quite insightful. And Lorna, thank you for sharing your story too. So on my side, I grew up in Mathare North, and I grew up with both my parents. Nimesomea Mathare North Primary, hiyo ni primary high school, nikaenda inaitwa Pioneer, na niko hapa hivi kama raia za kawaida. So along the way nimekuwa raised vizuri kabisa, siwezi complain. Juu sijajipata kama addict to a drug mahali ama vitu za ufalafala za mtaa. So mimi nilikuwa najua ati nitasettle nikiwa na kitu kama 30 years and above, but hiyo ilikuwa ni plan yangu. I found a lady mwenye at least alinisaidia kuona mbele.
Okay, we seem to have lost Jicho. As we rectify that, I'd like to ask Otiv.
Na plan zangu nikijua hivi ndo tutafuata. My audible.
Jicho. Yes.
Manipata?
Tunakupata.
So as I was saying,
yes.
We are, I shall continue. So as I was saying, I knew nilikuwa najua nita settle at 30 years old, but that was just my plan. God's plan kumbe ilikuwa ni settle earlier than that na nipate watoi even earlier than that. Sai niko na watoi wawili.
I think tumepoteza Jicho, but even as Jicho anajipanga rudi. Otivo.
Both are boys.
Yes, Robin.
Okay, sawa.
Yes.
Sawa. Jicho anaenda akirudi.
Somebody's busy here calling me. Hata nikate hadi lakini acha tuendelee. So nilikuwa nasema nilikuwa najua nda settle at 30, but hiyo ilikuwa tu ni plan yangu. Mimi nimesettle nikiwa na around 27, nikiwa na 26 years hivi ama 27 years. Hapo nilipata mtoto wangu wa kwanza na nikaamua mtoto aendi kuishi na the grandpa and the grandmom, atakuja tuishi naye hata kama bado sikuwa na doo vile, tutaishi to struggle mpaka ile siku tuta make it kama young couples. So sasa tuko wote kwa nyumba, at least niko thankful. Hatuwezi skip a meal ama hatuwezi pitisha siku kama tujadishi. Wana provide everything, the food, all the basic needs yenye watu wanaweza taka na wapatia. So kwa hiyo mimi niko thankful sana. And yes, I'm here as an artist doing all that, providing na you sani na life inasonga mbele. Yes.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jicho. Nataka ku bring in Otivo. Otivo, you're in a relationship, and
Yes.
from the discussions I've been having with you, you're looking forward to a point where it will lead into marriage. Assessment
So
yako na your life growing up and your family and marriage and how you view marriage moving forward as something that you want to finally end up in. Tupatie recap kidogo. What is it?
first and foremost, I tend to personally believe that marriage is a good thing. Not only being the oldest institution, but even in statistics, not only in Africa but abroad and worldwide, a stable family brings a lot to the table, not only for an individual but for the society. And if one can handle that responsibility, then it means that you brought at least a few people with a head start or an advantage, if I might say that. Because for me, growing up with two parents is not something you take lightly, and not only that, but loving and caring parents, you know. And even to add, if I can say, insult to injury, like parents who are really into music, which is a plus that not most of us get to have, you know. And I sometimes envy people like Lisa when they say like they've had 5, 6, 7, 8 siblings, Siko tu tuko wawili. Um, but I think it's neat though, having a 12-year gap between me and my sister. It's just amazing. You get to grow up and have fun and be the child. Then mtoto akiletwa home, unajua like it's exciting. So yeah, but I still believe even with the few of us who have had the pleasure or the advantage of growing in stable family settings, it's still also a challenge because the times that our parents were courting are not the same times that we are courting. Unajua. Not only technology, but the mindset of people nowadays, the laws of the land, you know, there's a lot that has changed. And even in a generation like ours where we embrace people like therapists, not only in our panelists, but in our lives as individuals, where you just have someone who's not your family, who's not your friend, who you actually pay to go and talk to and find solutions, gives it a very interesting dynamic, you know. So I believe with the changing cultures and people still wanting to stick with the norms of religion, and it's it's something that I really feel, and I am truly convicted that it's a dynamic that keeps on changing. And even when you get to like be married 20, 30 years, I don't know if Jennifer can attest to this, but it's still a challenge when you're married. When you find the right person, it's a challenge getting to that point of marrying. When you're married, jicho najua unaweza attest, it's not easy when you're the first 2, 3, 5 years. The first pregnancy is not the same like the second pregnancy. So I don't know. For people like us who are looking forward to walking down that road one day, it's it's a blessing to have people like Jicho who are young couples, and watu kama mom who have been in this game for a while, not only physically as married people but professionally as psychiatrists. So yeah, for me basically that's my I don't think I have never actually not don't think I have never seen like my parents fight or get into it physically, like I hear people say that ati, oh wewe ni mjinga kama mama yako. I am appalled at things like those. My dad cooks the best ugali, like my mama hawezi pika ugali when my dad is around. So I'm used to men going into the kitchen. So yeah, I don't think I can say like I have trauma during my childhood. I think even my parents are my biggest motivation for wanting to get married and having someone who you can call a life partner, because I have seen the way they work through the tough times, through the good times, and yeah, who wouldn't want to have someone like that around for the rest of their life?
I just had somebody say, "Oh."
Yeah. Who said that?
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Otibo. I want to ask Jennifer. Jennifer, there's a growing assumption amongst us that, you know, when you're married, you need to be happy, you deserve happiness at whatever cost, and the second that happiness is not being shown and displayed, you need to leave. And so I'm seeing somebody also in the comment section calling it a utopian thought. Yeah, but then my question to you, Jennifer, would be, even when we are by ourselves, even when we have our friends, when we're not in any particular union or relationship, happiness is not a constant. It's something we create and we work at every day. And so why is it that we think that marriage is supposed to be all roses and completely happiness from beginning to end? And I feel probably from the discussions we've been having online that people feel like there's a sort of abandonment to the role somebody has within a marriage to create their own happiness. So like, what are your thoughts based on that paradigm, Jennifer?
Yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry,
absolutely.
Jennifer. We couldn't hear you for the first few seconds. Please repeat.
Okay, I said nobody gives you happiness. You give yourself happiness. That responsibility doesn't belong to anybody else. It is your own. You choose to be happy, regardless of the circumstances. So I think it's rather unfair to place on your partner that huge task of making you happy. And much of this, I think, I can blame the media, what they have portrayed marriage as being. I know for those who watch those soap operas, somebody hooking you off, you carrying you off, and saying, "I will love you to the moon and back, and I could take an arrow for you or a gunshot for you," and all those things that they present one thing, but when we come to the ground, that's not the reality. So this thing of feeling that I'm getting hooked up with this person, they will make me happy for the rest of my life. That's a lie. That's a lie. And yes, together we can make us happy. You do your part, I'm doing mine, and even you as an individual, you are growing, and that's how you make yourself happy. Like you can wake up in the morning and decide, I will see things the way I'll be happy. It's a choice. Every morning I'll be happy. Rather than my partner needs to make me happy, it's upon him or her to look for creative ways of making me happy. Are you a job? Like this person is going to job every day, working on you. You are the project here. It doesn't work. Yeah. So I'm thinking the other thing is it's important to note that all these expectations, it's important they are laid on the table from the word go. What am I expecting from you? So that by the time agreeing to get married to this person, you know, they expect me to make them smile every single day. So how will I achieve that? So it's important that we manage our expectations because I think they're way too wild out there. Yeah, and of course the storybooks have to give it's a story anyway. The movies are also based on stories, you know. a make-believe world. But let's come down to reality. There are days you'll wake up and you'll be sad. There are times you face tough things every day, and you make a decision. Even if I don't feel like being happy, everything looks gloomy. I'm choosing to be happy regardless. I'm choosing to see what is good in this marriage. Choosing to see what is good in my partner when I'm feeling like he's driving me up the wall. So I think it's just a perception that more and more people need to be looked, to look into so that you know what is reality and what is out there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We have come to like the timeline for the first half of this conversation, and I want to invite my co-moderator Michelle. Michelle is going to also be probing further, and she's going to help us carry this conversation through. Michelle, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Robin. I just
Take it
wanted to,
away.
first of all, say thank you, a big thank you to all our panelists today. I can imagine how, how unnerving this must be, first of all, sharing your personal stories the way that you are, and more importantly, what we want to achieve with this conversation. And so, without wasting any more time, I just wanted to say, based on your own personal experiences, based on what you have seen, what you have heard, what you're aware of, and what is true for you. If we were to look at what the previous generations, like across generations presently, do you think that the reasons for getting into marriage have changed? Or do you feel that it is people's needs that have evolved? I think I'll start with you, Lisa.
Wow, that's a good question. I think some of the needs are the same, but also I think that there's been an expanse of knowledge of what people want. But I also think there's been confusion between expectation and need. And I say that because I think it's in GHC. So many of us were taught that there are three basic things you need: food, shelter, clothing, blah, blah, blah. But then now going into things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, things like self-actualization, we've taken so many things to the person that we want to be with instead of realizing that it might be more of an individual journey and we're both walking together on that path of figuring out ourselves and deciding if we want to figure it out together. I think there's a verse in the Bible that says, two cannot walk together unless they have agreed. And I think it's not necessarily agreeing on we have the same things, or yes, we may have the same values or whatever, but it's being able to see that, we're walking our own individual growth journeys, but when we come to points of, I guess, conflict or bones of contention, can we still find common ground? And I was telling a friend of mine, the relationships can blossom out of anything. I mean, there are even experiments that have been done where you put a man and a woman in a room, is it for like what? A certain amount of time in a month, or like every day they put people in a room, and they eventually, the people developed some kind of feelings towards each other. So it's like, okay, but then what would sustain that relationship after, that's the stuff we need to agree on, not that you're so much the same as me. So that's why when you ask that question, I'm like, at least if I can speak for myself, looking at my parents, sometimes they didn't even know these things for, oh, what do you expect from me in this relationship? Oh, what are your needs from me? What is, or even talking about things like that, whether physical, mental, emotional needs. I don't even think they had those conversations. So many stories I've heard where people are like, guy, Ati, you met the mom and you're like, I'm going to marry you, Or another one is like, whose daughter are you? Okay, that's a good family, And here we are, we're like, okay, I need this person to be like this and this, or other people with expectations like you need to be this tall, make a certain amount of salary, so I'd like to say, I think that, yes, I think people confuse expectation and need, but I also think that we've developed, I guess, a wider berth for what we think we can not handle and what we think we can handle. to some degree. So that's my piece.
Thank you for saying that, and I'm sure really you have encompassed some of our. I kind of relate to what you're saying in a big way, because again, some of the things we would say to our parents about what we would like in a spouse, they might find extremely idealistic and almost, out of reach. Very quickly, I will go to Jennifer. Thank you so much, Lisa. I'll go very quickly to Jennifer.
Thank you, Michelle.
Again, I'd ask you the same question. Do you think that there's a difference in the reasons people are getting married across the generations, from our parents, parents, and what we as young people, based on your observations, even in your line of work? What are the different? Do you think there's a difference in the reason? There's a difference in the reasons why people are getting married today?
There's a lot of difference. During my grandmother's time, let me use that. Yeah, I have some years on me. But during my grandmother's time, people used to get married because that is what people are meant to do. At a certain age, you are hooked up into a nice family. We know this so and so and this so and so, and people are hooked up together and they know each other in the marriage. They love learning how to love each other in the marriage. During my parents' time, it started. They could now look for the person you'd like to get married to, and but the family had a lot of say. Why were people getting married that time? Because it was expected, and again there was that joy of I have done what every other person my age is supposed to do. Come down to around my age, people are getting married more or less the same reasons, but now there was more of I'm getting married because I want to be happy, I want companionship, I want somebody to share my life with, and the excitement of all that marriage brings. But now I've seen generations have come, it's a matter of one, I might be getting married to show to people that look at the person, my catch. This is my catch. And everybody is oohing and eyeing at this person that I managed to net in. There are others who are getting married because for them to climb certain ladders in their profession, it's required. Like there's some places clearly you cannot be some levels until you are a family person. And so they're like, why not? Like in many churches I know, you cannot reach a certain level as a minister of the gospel unless you have a family. So somebody decides, so marriage is the thing for me. Let me look for a suitable girl. I marry and now I can move on to the next level. There are others who it's just for the fun of it. So the trends are changing, it's true. And from the onset, we see people are getting married even without, just because wakati imefika. And it's your parents who had the responsibility of getting you the right mate. But now things are different. And yes, I've been seeing a lot of all that, and parents are climbing the wall like, is that the only reason why you are marrying this girl? That can't you see she's a beauty? She's a trophy. Nimeshindia, got it. And also that his wallet is good, and he's making enough money, I'll be safe and secure. So I think the trends have changed definitely. Yeah.
And really, you really give us a rundown of how things have changed, and it's very important for us to also consider the differences in the people who came before us and why there's a disconnect in some of the things we say that are important to us and so on and so forth. I want to change the question a little bit for our people in the relationships, the ones who are in a marriage and those who are hoping to getting into marriage. And I think we've lost Jicho, so I think I'll just start with Otivo. What is that one thing that once you got into the relationship, once you got into the union, you had to give up? So it's something that was a requirement for you. What was that one thing that you found will just not be met and you will have to deal with it yourself?
Being selfish. and being self-centered. But I I know I know most people don't realize it, but when it's all you're taking care of yourself, you're thinking of yourself, it's really easy to think of yourself as a good person or as a kind person. But when you have to, you know, like make calls like every day, if not every hour, I mean, if you have to, change your status, not only online, but um, personally, when you're introducing this other person, when you're doing stuff personally, you realize that it not only affects you, but it also affects the other person in ways that you could not even imagine before. So for me, that was, like to the point where like you are so conscious of even how you're dressing when you're going out, because you're used to like just grabbing this t-shirt and those shoes, and you know but it changes. People are like, oh, you look good, you look nice, and they don't even know the pressure that is there. Yeah, yeah, but yeah,
Yeah, and so
yeah,
I really do understand that. The fact that when you get in, you have all these expectations and you hope that the other person
yes,
will meet you at your point of need. But really, as it is said by even former musicians, life is give and take, nipe ni kupe. And
true.
it's really interesting for young people to really just own up to that fact that you have an
Mm,
idealized way of looking at things, and yet what
mm.
you find once you get in is something entirely different. And so I really, first of all, commend you for getting to that level of, I don't know, awareness. I'd call it awareness, right? And
It's a
so,
daily thing.
when it's all right. So when you look at some of the reasons for example, separation, and some of the challenges that are currently facing unions today, I know a lot has been said about selfishness. A lot has been said about, the need for financial stability and how everybody is always looking to come in with a prenup and stuff like that. Um, at what point do you draw the line between being selfish and being lazy in a relationship? At what point are you not pulling your weight, and at what point are you just being self-centered? So I'll ask you again, Otivo, because you're the one who is you're a self-professed father of one. Please share your experience with us.
Wow. You know, people think of being there and not being there as only financially or stuff like that. But for most of us, we have like levels in our lives. There's the social part, where you must play your part as viewed by the society. But then again, for people like us who are even spiritually inclined, there are simple things like just praying for someone, taking some time just to send a piece of scripture, not not just asking how your day will be or just playing a role, but because you have been asking God to take care of this person and like their business and whatever they are up to. So I think when you reach to a point where you only think giving one side is enough and you are not holistically involved, if I can say that, because I personally come from a school of thought where man is not singular. Man has the spirit, has the body, and there's the soul. So if all those fears are not catered for and they are not dealt with in the manner that they are supposed to be dealt with, then it doesn't matter how much financial stability you have, it doesn't matter how good your looks can be, that relationship is doomed for failure. Just like if I can use a simple analogy, like you have nothing in common with that person, because a lot of these days is compatibility through looks and swiping left on an app, or who will look good next to me, or embracing my arm when we are walking down the red carpet, especially for us artists, you know. But when you come to realize, like, kuna stuff like, do you like the same food, because you're looking forward to spending the rest of your life with this person, unajua. Do you love the way they smell, because when you get married to someone, it's not the usual, you you'll get to see them on their tired days, you get to see them without makeup, you know. If this person is someone who likes to go church, then you get married to them and you're not a churchy kind of person. Sunday asubuhi nyumba 6 imewekwa wimbo za kanisa, watu wameamka wamejitayarisha, inakuwa sasa ni familia, mama na watoto ndo wanaendaga kanisa, baba ako, So I tend to feel that some of the mistakes that have been made is because people are not investing in that person 360. You just look at what society has put as a mold, pesa iko, the rest you will catch up with, and you get to realize that when you're in marriage, because we have seen it, when you're grown up, you get to understand why when you are young, like your parents, like ulikuwa unaona mtu like 2-3 years akona viatu the same. It's because they wanted the best for you and they had to nyima themselves. So ukikuwa na mtu mwenye anataka kuslay kwa Instagram, and now you have a family and you have to nyima yourself those nice shoes so that your kids can look good and have shoes to go to school, and so I think it's something that you can't take one piece and say this is the whole entirety of the truth. Just like an African stool, if you take away one of the 3 legs, your relationship haitakuwa stable.
And you're so right. Societal pressures, incompatibilities, and having all these nuances around what you'd want for yourself, and not even giving yourself a chance to change your mind, for example, really just gives this whole situation, even makes it more complicated. And I'm happy that Jicho is back on the call with us, because in some ways Otivo has preempted the next part of my questions or this discussion. And I really wanted to know, how do children affect marriages or even just a relationship? How does, when you get children, what is that thing that changes your relationship? I know there's a lot of sacrifice and self-giving, but between the interactions between you and your spouse or your significant other, how does it change in terms of taking shape? What new conversations do you introduce? I think I'll start with you, Chicho, because we've missed you for a minute there.
Yes, I'm sorry. I ran out of data. Anyway, I was umeuliza swali poa sana. Niko na mtoi hapa hivi, ndio kwa maana natembea pia, ndio huyu hapa. So,
sorry?
Nasema, I have a kid here who is a little bit jumpy all over here, so ndo kwa maana nafuata kila saa hapa, alafu credit pay kwa imenishia. Anyway, let me get back to our discussion. Salimia watu.
Babo.
Hi. Poa. Sasa?
Babo.
Poa sana.
Babo.
Aya.
Poa sana.
Bye.
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 Nana.
Aya, so Michelle, kindly eburudia swali kidogo tu.
So I was asking, how does having children or getting children change your relationship with your significant other or your spouse?
So naweza jibu hivi. Kukuwa na mtoi, first, attention yote ni kama uenda huko. Secondly, to an artist like me, I was used to coming back home at around 12. It change. I'll have to come back home a bit early, at least niweze kubond na watoi. Another thing, attention. Okay, going out is good and having fun, but fun saita kwa ni kwa mtoto. You'll have to give him all the attention. At least asione ni kama apendwi ama kuna some sort of gap in between wewe na mtoi. Yeah, that's what I can say as for now. Even though vile mufanya mimi nilikuwa kitambo narudi home late, but since nipate watoto home is my best place now. Ndaenda event vizuri, lakini ndarudi kwa nyumba mapema just to bond with my 2 kids. Kama sasa unaona na mimi hapa dai kuniacha and meeting. Yes, ni hiyo tu kwa sasa.
That's really wonderful to hear, because I know how challenging it can be for young adults, especially when you don't know how to be responsible for another life, let alone your own. So it's very commendable what you're doing. And I'm really proud that you're really just taking this as seriously as it should be taken. Again, I'll come to you, Otivo, just one last time. How do you feel that a relationship, or rather getting children in a relationship, changes your relationship with your significant other?
It's a game changer, because first and foremost, and I was hoping that Chicho would say that, but mom is here and she can attest to that. When you have children or a child with someone, basically you are tied together for the rest of your life. It does not matter if you stay together or you live together. That's just, that's creation in its purest and rawest of forms, and when you get to be blessed, sometimes not in a good way, but when you get an opportunity to have a child with someone else, positive or negative, it leaves a mark on your timeline. It changes your status for the rest of your life. It first and foremost, it's just, for me, it's a game changer. Because you've come from just a simple person to being Baba Nani or Mama Nani. And it's a beautiful thing. I think it also brings out a lot of things that you may not have known about the other person, because parenting is first and foremost, I believe, something that you cannot be taught or you can learn. It's something that is in you, built in by God, if I can use those terms, because some instincts kick in when you become a mother, some instincts kick in when you become a father. I think that's why they are called maternal or paternal instincts. You can look at wild animals, you can look at human beings, but there are certain emotions that come along, like, na nilikuwa nasikia tu kitu leo roho yangu tu ilikuwa inaniambia acha niombee nani. We hear those stories our parents tell us. Acha niombee kijana wangu, namwombea. Kumbe, when nowadays later on your son or your daughter speaks to you, you're like, wa? Ejewe, naona kwa nini nilikuwa nafaa nipige magoti niombe. So the connection is not only to your spouse, but you as a person to your kid, because you have merged two people and two lines, two DNAs, bloods into one, and created this beautiful and just an awesome and amazing person. Then it changes you, because you have also been taken and you have been planted into someone else's family, and I think for women it is more clearer in this day and age, in humanity, I think, because I think, if not the Indian society, most of the times wanaume ndo wanalipa dowry. It's the woman who has to change her name to the man's name. So you've also embraced other people to be your people who you've not been brought up with, people who you don't know their mannerisms. So you have to undergo another culture shock and learn kujua kwa hii family nani anatrustiwa, kujua kwa hii family nani ananipenda. It's a game changer. I honestly feel like it brings so much on the table. Mtu anaweza ongelelea about hizo changes from today till kesho, but personally tu hizo tatu tu ndo naweza sema zina nini.
Thank you so much for sharing all that, and it makes a lot of sense. It's true. Certain things you have to start doing. If you subscribe to the faith, you really have to start praying around certain situations, because truly it's very difficult and tricky and testing. I'm looking at the time, and really we are almost out of time. And I'm told that we have lined up a performance for you all. It's gonna be by Jicho. So without further ado, Jicho, the stage is yours. Welcome with your piece. Jicho? I think as we're waiting for Jicho to get reconnected, I very quickly want to go to the comment section just to get a feel of what's happening, what you are saying. Someone called Oyesa Oluchina says, I like that we are having these conversations. It is important that we debunk the perceptions and get to a place where we can at least understand and articulate what we want in relationships. And someone else, Karanja Wangoi, says, what about the people who get married to get some material gain, like fame, money, etc.? And I think we can tackle that during our Q&A session. Remember, you can easily post your question here, and we will address the question to the speakers we have today, the panelists we have. But now that we have Jicho back on, I think I'd like him to get on with his piece before we are out of time. Jicho, I just want to test your audio. Hi, Jicho. Can I test your audio? We can't hear you. All right. So in that case, allow me to hand over to my co-facilitator, Robin, to take this home. We have about 10 minutes left. So thank you all for your discussions. And I think as we close, I'd like to invite Omeka, my co-moderator, to take this home. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for that very apt session. I see Jicho, of course, is back. Jicho, can we have you on right now? Okay, as we wait for Jicho, I'll go through very quickly through the... Jicho, you're ready?
A minute, please, just a minute.
Okay, sawa. Awesome. So now we have Masi Mwongeli. Masi Mwongeli says, I love the discussion. I hope all about relationships will be tackled, especially relationships and financial management. I'm sure tutagusia hiyo. We already have talked about it a bit. Karanja Wangoi says, hi, niko ndani. Willie Oeba says, insightful. Thank you very much, Willie Oeba. We have Charlo Gideon says, standing on the moral point of view, our generation and sadly the future generation seems to be more happy and satisfied living as singles and also hoping from one partner to another. Sadly, yes, that's an observation I've also made. Charlo also says our generation has faced certain experiences that have left bad taste and seemingly an overrated kind of pressure from all kinds of relatives. I'd like to, before I continue, I'd like to invite Jicho. Jicho, are we good now? Jicho, unmute your mic. Tuko salama sasa?
Audible enough?
Yes, tunakusikia. Yeah. Twende kazi.
Kwa perform ama nilikuwa nifanya nini?
Ulikuwa perform.
Hii poem inaitwa Hope. Nimededicate to anybody mwenye ashaikuwa physically abused, sexually or even emotionally abused. Hii ni story ya udem anaitwa Hope. Dem alijua matumaini patikani tu kwa bucha, but kwa creation yote ile yenye na pump blood na inatumia 5 common senses. Since alipenda hype, Hope alitrust watu hiyo type, na kuna kitu ingemzuia kujibamba hata kama ni kuget crash party via Skype. Ni dem simple, mraundi kama pimple, straightforward kuliko chuma za reli na outgoing kuliko brand ambassador zo activate chupa za coke. Akiwa broken, badala ya miti kumpa mgongo, alikuwa na ready shoulder to lean on. Yote ni juu ya wazazi na mabeshte wachache wenye hawakuwa na roho ya chameleon. Nasema tu bonge, lifestyle na conversation yake ilimwangusha pabaya. Watu wanafaa kulisha machungo for sweetness, ndio tamai mwabeba, na sahi wako willing kukulisha ndimu for bitterness. Nilidhani ni Sergio Ramos pekee ndiye anaweza struggle na tisho ya Messi jo atakumbaka, lakini wapi. Pia binadamu ana akili timamu, sometimes obvious sanamu. Roho, akili na mwili yote imesimama. Umebakia tishio na chenye anaona kikuface ni opposite ya jina yake. Kwa hii situation Hope ni chati ya shule. Hope yuko pinned against the wall. For once Hope alifeel kama kiwete juu hakuwa na place ya kutorokea. Angependa kufly lakini kwa bahati mbaya hakuwa na mabawa. Priceless gift inakuwa taken away na fujo ya mtu anajaribu kulazimisha credit ya Airtel kufight line ya Safcom. Worse than sina daktari, mse ana inject hope na uchafu. Sindano juu kuilarika zake, but kuchukua advantage ya watu walikuwa na kuona kama mentor kwa mtaa. Ni funny, hauko mwanariadha bado utaishi kama runaway. Dunia mwangaza but all your life ukitembea sifu kwa blindfolded. The only achievement utapata kwa hii maisha ni guilt. Umefanya Hope apate usingizi. China weza imagine about your situation kwa life yake tayari ni nightmare. So sasa hivi na Hope ana smile. Joana jaribu kufight your feeling na secrets ziko deep within. Akikufinyia macho ni juu hizo pretty eyes zimechoka kuface pillow kila wakati na machozi kwa uso. Hope anasema hawezi change the past, but anaweza focus na future, alafu abadilishe what is to come. This one here is for Hope. Thank you very much.
Santi sana jicho.
I appreciate.
Nice. So I want to ask a few of the questions ninaona hapa kwa the comment section. Now just to go back a bit, naona Chalo anasema also the issue to do with previous relationships whereby virginity, purity, faithfulness are and seem to be a thing of the past, a certain cliche. Yeah, so kuna hiyo pia. Waziri Robi Filosomani said marriage is overrated. Leo ndoa nyingi zinasambaratika. Yeah, we have Chalo again says materialism and online show off seem to be a factor that is at hand. Karanja Wangui anasema what about the people who get married to get some material gain kama fame, money, etc. Oyesa Oluchina says, I like that we are having these conversations. It is important that we debunk the perceptions and get to a place where we can at least understand and articulate what we want in relationships. Yeah, I believe Jennifer also spoke a lot about it. We also have spontaneous, the talk of I will throw this question to Jennifer. Jennifer, let us look at this question. Talk of changes. You've brought in quite a new angle to things. What about dowry? I believe she's asking, does dowry really have to be paid? And also, is it really important to take the husband's name? So I will direct this question to you, Jennifer. Jennifer. Jennifer, please unmute your microphone.
Hi, there are some things that we cannot run away from. As much as we are moving away from the culture, in a very big way, we are doing things different. There are some things we cannot run away from. That is a part of our who we are, our culture. And I have seen people who said, "Oh, we won't pay dowry. I don't know, it's a thing of the past." And then fast forward, some other issues come up, and there are things that will not go on until they pay that dowry. I give a case in example of a gentleman who said, because the girl he was to marry, the parents would drink of everything. He said, "Mimi nimeokoka and my money will not be used for to drink it away." And so he did not give dowry. So fast forward, there was something that was happening that was very interesting. The lady would conceive, but would never get to term until at some point they were told, "You know what?" Because they even did a wedding without the parents, and they went ahead without the parental blessing, and they had to eventually look for them. What I'm saying is that these are things that are of our culture, and we cannot run away from them. But if you're in a culture that has already said it's okay, and anyway, what is dowry? Dowry is it's a sign of appreciation. In fact, in the way I look at it, even in the Bible, we see Rebecca was paid for dowry. We see different people. It's something that is part of almost all cultures. But what I certainly do not agree with is exorbitant, like getting things from the young man, milking him dry, you know. But on the other hand, actually, it is very important that we continue with that culture, because what will you have to do if that's what they are demanding? Like if unfortunately a lady dies and she was not paid for dowry, the man is not allowed to marry her. I mean to bury her. And so he has to first pay dowry, then he's allowed to bury his wife. So there are things we cannot run away from. Yeah. I don't know that it's making sense, but from where I stand and what I have seen, yeah, we go on with dowry thing.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And what about? So I believe it's the same. It's the same response for having the husband's name. I don't know. Maybe even as we wind up in the last few minutes of this discussion, I believe there are around 8 minutes left to the 1.5 hour mark since we started. I'd like to ask Lisa. Lisa, this question of people taking their husband's name, I've had it. It's a broad discussion, and I just want to pick your mind on it. What are your thoughts? I can see you're already laughing. Yeah, Lisa. Lisa, unmute yourself.
Sorry. Sorry about that. I find it funny already because people will think, due to my last name being the way it is, people think I'm married. So I've seen people Googling, Lisa, I don't know a husband and such, and I'm like, hey, nimeongeza jina ingine at the end. But actually what I think it depends on what you agree as a couple, because I've been raised with where my mother took on my father's last name, you know, so and I don't see a problem with it, honestly. Or I have relatives where it's a combination of a part of their first name, or rather their maiden name, and a combination of their husband's last name. So for me personally, I'm like, what do we agree on, you know? Because also I think in the case of some people who are artists, especially if they have like a stage name or otherwise, sometimes they don't change what their stage name is known as, but legally their name is different. And for me, I don't see a problem with it. I think, but like I've said before, it's what you and your person agree on. And if you're going to stick more towards the traditional side of taking on his name, that's fine. If you want to not, I think as long as the two of you agree, that shouldn't be that much of a bone of contention. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much, Lisa. Uh, just to go back to the comment section, even as we tie the conversation down, I have less than 5 minutes left. I want to quickly go through the remaining comments so that we capture everybody's sentiments. There are not that many. Esther Mote says it's important to work on yourself first. When you're happy, this energy also reflects on your partner and the kids too. Very aptly put. We have Waziri Robi Filosomani saying Jicho kali sana hiyo. That's to Jicho Pevu's performance. By the way, Jicho Pevu is an award-winning poet. I just thought I should mention he's a very modest man, so he will not say it. Jicho Pevu is an award-winning poet, and he also has an album out. It's called the Eskimo Kisses. I believe it goes for 350. Jicho.
Yes, it's
Jicho.
350 shillings.
350 shillings.
Yes, it's an EP actually.
It's an EP. Nice.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to listen to a few of the tracks, and they're really nice. If you can, you really should get in touch with Jicho. He's available on all social media platforms. You literally just have to inbox him and find out. We have Tabi Tab says Waziri Robi Filosomani. Yes, it's expensive, but watu wanafaa wakazane walipie tu. Haina shortcut hiyo. Of course, this is in response to Waziri Robi Filosomani's comment on dowry inafaa iondolewe. It is very expensive. Watu waende kwa chief basi. Vijana wengi hawaowi, tatizo ni hiyo dowry. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. So you can see there are so many varied sentiments. I want to bring this conversation to a close, but in case people didn't realize, this panel has had 3 artists. There has been Otivo, who is a singer-songwriter, and he knows how to play any instrument that you can think about. There's also Lisa Odor Noah. Lisa Odor Noah is a very talented singer and songwriter. She has had the chance to study at the Berklee School of Music, and so when she talks about music, it's from a very informed perspective on the subject. You should check out a lot of her work on YouTube. She has a lot of songs that are very soulful, very captivating, and subscribe to the channels. I'd like the panelists who I have on board to give us final remarks in the 3 minutes that we have left. Compound the discussion in a few sentences and tell us what you want our audiences to take home with them when this live feed ends. I will start with you, Lisa Odor Noah. Lisa.
I think I'll pose a few questions. For those of you who I guess are aiming towards marriage or hoping or have questions about it, I'd ask, who are you becoming? And who do you see yourself with? And even if you're in a relationship already, the person that you're with, can they also see who you're becoming? And how can the two of you grow together into those people? Can you partner in the vision of what you see your life will be? That's what I'd ask. And then more than that, I'd say, hey, we design so much of our lives. Even though we've been through so much, we design it with the choices we make. And choice is such a powerful thing. And I guess there's a verse that says, the power of life and death is in your tongue. But the second part says, like, those who know it will eat their fruit. Do you know what you're designing with your choices, the decisions you make, with the person that you choose to be in a relationship with? What life are you designing? What relationships are you designing, even with the people you keep around you, with your speech, with your thoughts, So I think I'd say that that would be my closing remarks, or I guess closing questions, something to think about every time, whether it's not just exclusively in relationship or I guess in your life. Yeah. Even from your experience, what choices will you make after having been through them, and even as you go through them,
Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa. Lisa, unaona kitu unaulizwa hapa. Can Lisa sing
Aya.
something? Are you seeing that question?
Aya.
Haya,
Jelo.
mimi nilifikisha
Aya.
ujumbe, mtu asiniulize. Yeah, but is it something you can do even at the end?
Just something short, fine, sure.
Okay, so let me take the rounds of let me take the comments from Jennifer and Otivo and Jicho, and then we'll get back to you.
Sure.
Yeah, so Otivo, watu waende nyumbani na knowledge gani in very few words?
First and foremost, know yourself, because most people get into stuff and they do not know themselves and the capacity they have as they are going into that. And always have an anchor, you know, because most people wait for the other person to come and complete you, you know, but you yourself should be an anchor in life, because most, if not all, of the problems that we are facing right now as a society come from people not dealing with their own personal struggles and things that are happening in their life. Because I am a firm believer that if you are healed from previous heartaches, if you are walk in a sense that you know what you desire, and not only that, realize that there is also someone else who you're taking care of, be it financially, emotionally, or whatever kind of way you're taking care of them, then I believe it's something useful. And for me, the most important thing is it doesn't matter if someone has a kid or if someone underwent something traumatic in their life. I mean, for us Christians, the Bible says love covers over a multitude of sins. So if you're in a position to love someone, it doesn't matter what they've gone through or what baggage they have, you know, you will make them even into a better person than what society thought they could be, and change lives and even impact other people to see that there is a way out. Yeah.
Asanti sana. Jicho Pevu.
Yes.
What should people go? Watu waende na message gani nyumbani? People watching, what are your final words in very few sentences?
My final words ni anybody mwenye anadate ama anafikiria kudate, manze usiingie kwa relationship na expectations kubwa. Hiyo ni ya kwanza. Huwa expectations. Another thing, do what makes you happy. Ukifeel unataka kumove in na mtu kwa na 40 years, it's your choice. Hiyo mtu hawezi kuzuia, ni choice yako. Hata Mungu hawezi control kitu unadai. Anajua uko na will ya kufanya anything ile unataka. Another thing, manze, pressure huko nje ni nyingi. Pressure ya kumove in, pressure ya watoi, pressure vitu mingi sana za life. Pressure, chorea pressure kabisa. Fanya vitu kivyako. Fanya vitu kivyako na utaishi a very happy life, na utaishi a very long life. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Asanti sana Jicho. Now on to Jennifer Mutoga. Watu waende nyumbani na message gani? Please unmute yourself, Jennifer.
Have you can hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying that marriage works, and it takes two to tangle. It's work from day one, and you have to be willing to make it work. It's job, ni kazi. And God ordained marriage as an institution. So when you have issues, go to God. Marriage issues, He knows how all the answers to what there is. And when you're getting into marriage, if you have issues, before you can walk in, it's helpful to seek help, seek counseling to make sure that you're starting on a good level, that you know what it is as a couple, so that we don't have a crazy expectations. So premarital counseling has saved very many young people from getting into pitfalls. And yes, marriage works and marriage is good and we can do it until death do us part. It's possible. Yes.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you so much, Otivo. Thank you so much, Lisa Oduor Noah. Thank you so much, Jicho. Thank you so much, PTN. Thank you so much, Michelle, for all the input in bringing this conversation together. In the spirit of not closing anybody outside, I'm seeing there's a final comment here by Tabby Tabs. She says, marriage is a good thing. It's like making a covenant to love and cherish each other. So it requires something to bind the two of you together, and that thing is a wedding. Mkiwa mmefanya harusi, the new guys are legal kabisa, and that's why unaona watu hupewa certificates. Personally, I'm not married, but it's my prayer that I will be. That's Tabby Tabs. I'd like to bring this conversation to a close by inviting Lisa Oduor Noah to give us a number. Lisa.
In the spirit of talking about love and relationships, I'm gonna sing a song that's like an oldie, I guess, but also a good song. It's called Hug, originally by I think Please, but PJ Morton has done another version. And if you know it, you can sing along. It says, how deep is your love? How deep is your love? I really need to learn, 'cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be, 'cause we belong to you and me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lisa, for that. Tunashukuru sana. And from us at Anika and PTN and the Boyz Chamber, we would like to love you all and leave you. It's been a blast. Asanteni sana for being with us. Bye-bye. Hey.